Hello, hello. All right, guys, how are you? Happy Monday. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mom Rocks IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. Now, with that said, if you are new to catching me live, post a one below. If you are an oldie but goodie, you guys know what to do. Post a two below. I also put in the comments the link that you need to put. So when you leave comments, for those of you on the group, you can go to this link, you click yes, because groups are private, and then I can see your little circle picture. Okay. So this came up and I found it very interesting. It was a conversation that was had between teachers, several different teachers. And I found it to be very interesting. So I will give you my thoughts at the end, but I want you to hear the thoughts of others because I find the conversation enlightening. And I think that, it's a healthy conversation. Um, a lot of good stuff here. And I think it's important for you to know. It goes to show, especially, many of us, I follow many good advocates. And like I've said, there's like 5 of us that I would say are good and they know their shit, and we're friends and we talk and, we support each other because we need more advocates. Right. So, with that said, I'm going to get started. So the questions about, is from an inclusion teacher, and she's talking about, does your school still push in, pull out? What do you do? How does that work in your school, kind of thing? Okay. While inclusion, I'll give you my opinion later. All right. So one person says inclusion is not very successful. I'd love to hear some success stories. Many teachers said we do both, push in and pull out. And one thing that concerned me was when it was said both, but mostly because I have students who are 3 to 5 grade levels below and are working on their goals in the classroom, and working on their goals in the classroom is hard for them. So I pull them out, but I also work with them in their rooms on grade level material. So I thought about that for a second. And I got a serious problem with that. I don't know about you, but being an inclusion teacher, not myself, but just thinking, being an inclusion teacher, and you're pulling out, which is a good thing because they shouldn't be in the classroom, in my opinion. They should be pulled out to get that extra help. If they're 3 to 5 grade levels below where they are, it makes no sense to me for them to be working on grade level material in their classroom. The reason I say that, okay, is because, so I'm going to give my opinion throughout, okay? I think that'll work better. Is because it's, my puppy is right here, so I'm like picking lint off him, his shirt. Is because I just really struggle with this because I had asked a question and I said, oh, wow, are you given a hard time for that? What about parents? And she said, no. And I'm not sure if she understood my question fully, but because it's hard sometimes to gauge like how someone is asking a question. So I just kind of left it alone. But when you're 3 to 5 grade levels below, and here's the thing, is this is completely ignored and it's a problem. If your child is in inclusion, all right, which is great. The goal is to have them in LRE. When you pull them out, when they're 3 to 5 grade levels below, or anytime they need to be pulled out, that is important. hands down. But then to come back into the classroom and do grade level material when they're 3 to 5 grade levels below, to me, is unproductive, you know? So that's kind of where that is. All right. Mind you, the law is a bit twisted in this sense, but they have to teach them at grade level if they are not on the alternative assessment track. I don't know if you guys remember when I did a live on the alternative assessment track. All right. I called it the 0 track. So it's the state level testing. All right. Graduation track. Okay. Then you have the alternative where the child is not passing state level testing. They're not, on grade level. And yet they're still on the state assessment testing and taking these tests. And I'm not getting the fact that the schools are then saying that those students, many of them, do not qualify to be being put on the alternative assessment track because of the different check marks on the checklist. They all have to be checked. Well, so it's kind of like, okay, unless your child is the worst of the worst, they got to take the regular assessments that everybody else takes, even though they're so far behind. And that may not be just the worst of the worst, in my mind. What I'm thinking is, they're just, at that point of not able to at all have that academic learning. And one would say, at the lower end of the spectrum, if it was autism, etc., it's just crap, whatever. So my thing is who are they to say, okay, your child's high functioning, so they have to take the state assessments, but your child's low functioning, and even though they're low functioning, they still have to take the state assessment because they're not this low. It's kind of prejudice and discriminatory, if you will. And the check marks are basically saying that unless your child falls within a certain category, they're shit out of luck. So it's a bit twisted. But with that said, going back to inclusion, which again is great, the question here is pulling out, pushing in type thing. All right. So another lady said, I'm a kindergarten inclusion teacher, but all other grades 1 through 6 are pulled. Another one said, both. She pulls out and pushes in. And she said it was based on need. All right. Another one said, inclusion, but I am in the room and pull out. Key thing. Hard to work on IEP goals in the room when it is so distracting. And I am only there for 15 minutes at a time. I have 4 rooms I bounce to each day. I know that's not really inclusion, but that's what is expected. Another person said we do both. I teach math resource class and math inclusion class, a language arts resource class, a language arts inclusion class, and 2 targeted reading groups using HillRap. But do you see the problems here? Everybody's everywhere. Everybody's being pulled in all these different directions. There's no consistency kids are being pulled, but for 15-minute sessions, or they're having push in for 15. You can't do anything in 15 minutes. I do both, but my inclusion for 15 minutes and 30 minutes, I only do inclusion for 15 or 30 minutes. My first year as a teacher, I was in inclusion all day. Next year, my district is making all special education resource teachers push in reading for 35 or 52 minutes on all grade levels, K to 2. Resource teachers has a push in 52-minute. 3 to 5 resource teachers will have a push in 35-minute. So this will be interesting on how this works. We only have 4 resource teachers. So all these different things are happening and it's not consistent. And, there's this rule that is said, oh, well, we're not going to give that child, pull out because they're not one of these. This is where I came, with this, is where one of the ladies had said, oh, well, unless they're the worst of the worst. That's where that came from. And in my mind, I'm like, well, what's the worst of the worst? Who judges that, And so it's frustrating. They're all over the place. And so hearing this goes to show, number one, there's very few people who are doing this, which is why the schools are fighting when we're requesting for pullout. All right, it's much easier pushing in, distracting everybody, and pushing in to serve the masses. I've always argued the fact that there's no possible, and I asked this question, there's no possible way. I have yet, and I've said this multiple times on lives, I challenge somebody to come at me with this. I challenge you. What can you tell me that can happen that if children are given because group instruction comes into here. If group instruction happens, all right, and you and I are in that group, I have an IEP, you have an IEP. How is that teacher going to serve your IEP and my IEP in those 30 minutes? Tell me how that can physically happen. Schools have been doing this for years, and I'm still not understanding how that's happening. And I'm ready to challenge it with the states. And the problem is there's no rule, law, policy, etc., that there has to be group instruction. There's only scientifically based and research-based material on group instruction and general education. It's amazing. I cannot tell you, if you have a child that does not have special needs, it's amazing. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better because the children watch each other, learn from each other, grow. It's awesome. But with special education and children with special needs, there's such trivial information, no science. And when I say information, I'm talking about research. I mean, it's minute, okay? And it doesn't prove anything. It's just, this was researched, all right? Where group instruction for gen ed kids, research, scientifically based, it's amazing, okay? Hands down. So don't get it confused. I'm speaking just of special education children. And, it's frustrating because I say all the time, if the child needs speech or OT or reading or math or whatever it is, all right, that child needs to be pulled out. Just like I've talked about riding a bike or, reading instruction. it has to be done on an individual basis for that child to quickly learn as best as they possibly can and process. Okay, because a lot of children who have reading needs, concerns, etc., or even disability, such as like my daughter, she has dyslexia. So when we're looking at children like my daughter who has dyslexia, we have to really look at how do these children learn, okay? And here's the craziest thing is, do you know the supports and how children learn, meaning with dyslexia, and many children with dyslexia learn this way, that I'm going to tell you in a second. Do you know almost every child, not just children with disabilities, learn this way? Do you want to know what way that is? I bet you can guess. All right. Modeling. The best way to teach a child is by modeling. The best way. Okay. The I do, you do, we do approach. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And then you do it again. And that is how most learn. And it's a healthy way. And, I was reading an IEP the other day and I was going through an evaluation and I was looking at it, and a lot of places I saw, does well with the modeling approach, or after being modeled, he couldn't do it. But then after something was modeled, he was all of a sudden able to do it. And so I looked at that, because it was an assessment, a formal assessment, that you could support them before they answered the question. And I thought about that for a second, because is that the child can't do it because they couldn't do it just on a whim? Or is it the child that actually could do it, but just after you showed them one time? And in my mind, tell me what you think, I think that means that they can do it. I'm not saying that if it was a goal, obviously it's individual, that's different. But the fact that the child could do it after it was modeled just goes to show that there may be some processing or recall concerns going on, and not so much the ability to do the task, okay, or what's being requested, because obviously that can be done. So how it's done without seeing it really quick, or processing, okay, how did that happen when I saw that before? And the recall of that's where the struggle is. So the struggle actually has to be worked on, that processing, recall, possibly executive functioning, versus worrying about the child knowing what to do, because they obviously did after seeing it. And so it's interesting, all of this, because in reading all of the different comments on inclusion, and I'll read this one to you. It says, yes, I'm a SPED teacher and I'm a co-teacher certain periods. And I teach a small group of kids 1 period a day where I am the teacher of record. I teach them grade level standards and do a lot of scaffolding. I teach middle school. We don't have any pullouts. It's either small group or inclusion. Do you see the problem with that? What do you mean small group or inclusion? It isn't just small group or inclusion. Like, how do you say that? How do you say that when it's based on the child's individual need? It's not A or B. It's not B or C. It's what does this child need, not inclusion or small groups. Because if the small groups doesn't work and the child needs to have individual one-to-one, there are a lot of special needs kids that only learn that way, one-to-one, and then can possibly generalize. All right. Many kids cannot always learn in a setting where there's multiple children. And the issue that is arguable, and could go both ways, I'll give it that, is when you decide on one or another and rule out other ways, that is removing FAPE from that child from happening. Because if A or B doesn't work, A or B is all you're offering here. So that's saying, hey, one of these two, you gotta get with the program, kiddo, or you shit out of luck. That's what that's saying. Because she said it's this or this. That's it. Another person said inclusion with pullouts, which I like that one. I set aside times throughout the week to pull them from activity and elective classes during independent tasks for the time specified in the IEP. For instance, if pullouts are 50 minutes weekly, I pull them 2 days per week, or however many days it is that I need to take, and they get those 50 minutes. Another person talks about kids who are way below grade level have small group ELA. I have them for the whole period, and I am ELA certified. I scaffold in both classes. So it's co-teaching and then at grade level standards. All right. The kids that are below grade level have small group ELA. Do you see the problem with that? So it's co-teaching, grade level standards. Your child, hypothetically, could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind. But they're learning grade level standards. Right? The problem with that, even though it has to happen, and that's the frustrating part, is it has to happen. If your child is not on the alternative assessment track, it has to happen. They have to be, and it's not they have to be taught grade level, they have to be exposed. Okay? So they have to be introduced to it. All right? Whatever the hell that means. So it doesn't say they have to learn it, they have to be part of it. It says they have to be exposed to it. All right? So your child has to be exposed to grade level material that they don't freaking understand. And they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind. All right? And they're 2, 3, 4, 5 years behind, but we're going to push in. We're going to disrupt everybody, the teacher, the kids, everybody, to push in and work with your child among God knows how many others. And we're going to make sure that they learn to write good. These are the things that you have to be thinking about, because it's something many parents are not thinking about. This is a big part of this system that is not working. Okay, it is not working. All right, and this goes for reading, it goes for math, it goes for any type of service, OT, PT, speech, whatever. In PT, are you going to push in and teach that child how to walk up steps or whatever the case is in their classroom because it's better to keep them in the LRE? That's what a attorney in Texas told me once, and I mean I argued it with her and she finally shut up. But what? Well, we have to keep them in the LRE. The hell you do. Okay? So if a child needs to be pulled out, they need to be pulled out. All right? The goal, okay, is to have them in the LRE, least restrictive environment, right? Of course. But they can be in the least restrictive environment and be pulled out for areas of need. And that's the hiccup. Oh, we can't do that. We want to push in. We want to keep them in the least restrictive environment. We want them exposed to what they're being taught at that moment. Mind you, the child doesn't understand shit that's being taught because they're not on grade level. But hey, let's keep them in that classroom during the time that they're really struggling in areas that we really need to focus on so that they can actually be productive human beings once they're 18 plus years old. Let them sit in ELA and reading where they're totally not comprehending a damn thing that you're teaching, and not pull them out to teach them one-on-one because we want to keep them in the LRE. Now, tell me how educators think that way. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I don't understand how. I mean, it'd be different if it was like business or politics. I expect stupidity. In education, I don't expect stupidity. And some are very, 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 very stupid. And I don't do dumb very well. I don't do bullshit. And so when I'm in an IEP meeting and I hear bullshit and I hear the crap that's happening, I call it out immediately. However, here's the kicker is many times I find out it's not the teachers that initiated this. It's what's been being told to them that they have to do, kind of like this one person had said and said, oh, it's going to be interesting next year doing this. All right. So they're told this is how we're doing it. This is what you can offer. As a special ed, teacher, typically that is the case manager most of the time, not always, but most of the time. And so when they're in IEP meetings, they're told, oh, this is it. It's A or B. That's it. That's all we do. Then you have parents like myself and others who are like, I don't give a shit if you have A or B. My child needs C and D. So you need to figure it out. Figure it out. I don't care how you do it. If you got to hire someone from the outside, okay, and they need to be paid to come into the school system and teach the children, okay, my child, okay, was in the public schools, okay, and her speech therapist was not working for the school. She came in, okay? They had a different type of contract, but she did not work for the school district. Why? Because their speech therapists were idiots. I wasn't tolerating it. So my thing is, and that's not saying all speech therapists are idiots, just so you know, but they were. So that's the thing is, if they don't have it within the school system, they don't have the people, they don't have the staff, they don't have the knowledgeable individuals in order to teach a child that is struggling with reading. Because even though you have to start off with the special education teacher and give that a shot of, okay, my child's struggling in reading, let's try pull out 30 to 6, I will say 60 minutes in like a resource room or privately, wherever it is, to have that one-to-one with reading. You have to try it with the SPED teacher. All right. What I always do is before they start and 12 to 14 weeks later, I have them tested with Linda Mood Bell. So before they start, I have that baseline, and about 14 weeks later, 12 to 14 weeks later, I have it done again. And I'm able to gauge, was that teacher able to make progress? Because what they'll do is they'll go off of benchmark assessments, which many should know that benchmark assessments are not a way in which to measure progress formally. It is a way in which teachers can measure and kind of get a gauge of where that child is. But benchmarks scoring is based off that benchmark's name of how they score. They choose, not where the child is always. So they're not very reliable. There's so many other things I could say about it, but just in a nutshell, they are also the tests, if you will. I call them, I think they're great for practice. That's what I think they're great for. Okay. You stick a child on the computer, let them practice. Practice, makes perfect, right? But it's just a way in which to keep it visual, keep it there, keep it in their face, and the ability to practice. Okay. But when parents or advocates like myself go into an IEP meeting and I'm bitching about data, I'm bitching about, why they have no baseline, why when I ask specific questions of what the child can do, no one freaking knows, or they don't have the papers in front of them and aren't prepared. Then I give them a period of time to get that stuff to me, and they then shove benchmarks in our face. No, I don't care about your benchmark, because I know, just like that child sat in front of the computer, they take the benchmark. Up, they didn't do good. Okay, sit in front of it again. Do it one more time. Up, you didn't do good. Up, sit in front of it again. Do it one more time. Mind you, that benchmark has rules. Those rules state that a child can only take that benchmark so many times during a period of time. But it doesn't matter. Sit in front of the computer and do it. Sit in front of the computer and do it. And then that best score, that's why sometimes you'll see 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. That child memorized that shit so they didn't have to sit in that chair. That's what happened. Okay. Does the child know it? No. Did they memorize the answer? Yep. That's what happened. And then they hand it over. Look, they're doing so good. They got 100. And then they're not expecting me to say, I don't care. That's not where they are. Their assessments don't even say that's where they are. So how are you coming to me with this bullshit? I'm not falling for that. I mean, you may fall for that, but you and I both know that child sat in front of that computer a couple times to get that score. That sure as hell wasn't done one time. Let's just keep it freaking real. All right? All right. So one of the teachers said, I pull kids out to work on goals. Another one said mostly inclusion with some pull out. Another teacher said both. She does pull out and push in. We offer the full continuum per federal law. I teach self-contained and resource, and the others, I do push in and pull out. That doesn't require daily resource. My self-contained kiddos thrive in a smaller, more nurturing environment, and the resource kids beg to stay because they like it. It doesn't have to be the worst option. One teacher said all they do is full inclusion with a gen ed co-teacher. But most said that their kids do both, pull out and push in. That's pretty standard. All right. Some people said full inclusion, which is straight up in the gen ed setting. All right. So this was a concern for me. Yeah, it's now pull out is the best way. All right. Push in is not. All right. Now I will say push in is not bad for everything, but it is not just the pup. But it is not great for specific areas like reading, math, and services. Okay. And group is definitely, no, sir. And group is definitely not encouraged. All right. Because, and the thing is that sucks. I will say it does suck because groups are good for kids. All right. It's good to have kids together. It's good to have them to be able, if they're social, to be able to communicate with each other. But the thing is you don't know, and I don't know what the other child's needs are. That's why it's amazing for gen ed, but it's not amazing for special ed. And children do not typically or always make progress. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to tell you they're not making progress. It just means they're typically not making progress. Okay. Like if you were to focus for, say, 12 to 14 weeks on one area with your child, all right, your child has push-in. Take weekly notes. What's happening? What are they doing? What does the push-in look like? Go see it for yourself. And 12 weeks later, tell me what the progress is from those push-in. Because push-in is very rarely for 45 minutes or an hour. Okay? We're talking 15, 20, 30 minutes max. Definitely not, 45 minutes or an hour. So what child, and it's definitely not every day. So, what child is going to strengthen their writing skills and being able to write within the line, or be able to have a tripod grasp, or whatever it is that they're trying to work on, gain more writing strength in their hands, and not having so much fatigue, or, writing too big, writing their letters backwards, whatever it is. What is 15 to 30 minutes a week going to do for them in that area? Nothing. And then if you take into consideration the distraction of push-in for teacher or other students, all right? And I've been told so many times, oh, it's not distracting at all. We make sure to go in, during certain times where it's not going to be distracting. And, we're really cautious about that. Doesn't matter when you push in. Doesn't matter. What matters is the child learning. Show me the child's learning. I can't tell you how many times I say this. Show me. Don't tell me. Show me. All right? Don't, how do you say it? Succumb to the trickery. They're making progress. Here, let me show you the check marks of, making sufficient progress, working on it. Or here's a good one. Anticipated in making their goal by the end of the year. It's anticipated. Some of these things just are so ridiculous that they're funny. Not funny for our children, but funny as in how they're even considered, talked about, and even an option, I have a school district in Texas. All right. So do you guys know what specially designed instruction is? We're kind of on that road right here, right? So specially designed instruction is when your child's pulled out of class and given that one-to-one. That's specially designed instruction. All right. So you can call it pull out all you want, but it's specially designed instruction. That's what it is. That is the definition of specially designed instruction. Let me pull your child out of the classroom and work with them directly. Okay. And specially designed instruction can be done in the classroom or out of the classroom, and it doesn't have to just be done one-to-one. So it can be done in a small group. So Texas has very specific things that go into play of the description of specially designed instruction. They actually have a book, specially designed instruction. They even have one specially designed instruction for teachers. This is how you do it. And guess what? The principal of the school keep saying, no, it's not specially designed instruction because, it's given to all the children. There, he was pulled out with all the children. Okay. All the children who needed it were pulled out of the classroom and given this instruction. Oh, interesting. And you didn't feel the need to tell the parent. Okay. And all the children are getting it. I said, oh, okay, so they're still getting it? No, well, now he's not getting that because he's actually given the one-to-one because of behavior. His behaviors, were disrupting the other kids. So now it's being given one-to-one. So that is not given to other children, right? The other children are learning in a group that you're pulling out based on need. And this child was receiving it like other children, possibly. And now they're not because their behaviors, and you don't believe that's specially designed instruction. According to you, that is what? Oh, that's just, all the kids are getting that. All the kids are getting it. I mean, they're like in freaking denial. Like, I'm like, in all honesty, you shouldn't be a principal if you believe that that's not specially designed instruction. I mean, do you think that you're going to convince me based on your lack of knowledge or your games? That's what it is. Games that you're playing is going to convince me that it's not specially designed instruction, as if I'm going to question myself because of that gaslighted material that you just fed me, that I'm supposed to digest as that's it. It's not specially designed instruction. I am losing my mind. And how dare I think that, even though it's completely described in the Texas, on the damn Texas website, Department of Education. But you're right. You are right. You are right. Watch out for that stuff. All right. And be okay with any type of instruction that your child needs that's one-to-one. Allow it. Okay. Because the more they learn one-to-one, and hopefully it's taught in a modeling way, which, you'll have to go see it for yourself, then they will make progress. But it always comes down to the who. Who is teaching it and how? The who and how. I always say who and how. How they are teaching it to the child. Are they modeling it? What is the approach in which they're teaching? You can call it a methodology if you want, but I don't like methodologies because methodologies is based on a certain way in which to do something. And our kids don't learn that way. So when we sit and focus on these various different methodologies, various different ways of learning, various different things, we're all over the side of the road, and no one's able to find anything that works because you're all over the place using multiple different things. So if something within those things works, you're not even able to pinpoint what it is because you're everywhere with it. And so that's why certain ways in which to teach should be approached singly so that you can fade out what works and what doesn't work and keep the things that are working. Fade out what doesn't work, keep the things that are working. Okay? And you may find out that the children learn in one way more, or it may be 2, 3, 4 different ways that they learn about the same. So it does give options once you start that initial teaching process. It's kind of like when you first give your child baby food. You give them whatever it is, peas first, and then you do that for a week, make sure they're not allergic, then you give them something else, then you give them something else. Well, that is the way that teaching should happen when you're modeling something, or however that explicit and systematic instruction, that is how it should go, because then you can fade out the things that are not working and learn and know the things that are, to be able to stick with it and run with it in order for that child to make progress. That is key. Okay. So I wanted to share that with you because I found it very interesting, because I'm always arguing about group instruction and the different things that schools will do when it comes to group instruction. And again, for gen ed peers, amazing. Absolutely. But for special needs children, it always should be one-to-one. All right. And, if group is being provided for children with special needs, and, because one of the questions I'll ask is, well, what kind of group? Like, how are you grouping the kids? They all have different needs. They all have different IEPs. How are you grouping them? Oh, they're all like each other. They're all working on the same thing. Oh, okay. So all of their goals are the same? No, they're not all the same, but they're all pretty much on the same level as best as possible. Okay, right. We don't have access to that other child's material. We don't have access to their IEPs, and it's none of our business. But what is our business is where you're putting our child, okay? What it is that they're being exposed to, and what are you doing in order to meet their needs and the goals, let's just say for speech, that are for communication. How are you doing that? How is that being done? I want to know that. Because nobody has been able to tell me when I say, nope, no group instruction. We're not doing that. All right. If you think that's what we need to do, then we're going to have to take this to another level, because that's not happening. It's not happening. This child's 3 years behind. Get down. Get down. This child's 3 years behind. We're not doing this group instruction shit. No, not happening. If you want to go and fail somebody else's child, that's on you. But the child that I'm working with, it ain't happening. And it's not okay to fail someone else's child. But everybody's got to team up and become aggressive with this and put their foot down. If not, you got group instruction happening on various different IEPs that are not identical, with various different goals that are not identical. And educators saying, oh, it's a group of like children. What does that mean? Like individuals. They all have autism. Like children. They all have ADHD. I don't know about you, but I know there's children with autism that are completely social and can hold a full-on conversation. And then I know children with autism that are nonverbal. So what do you mean like children? Now, granted, I'm a smart human being, as are you. I get, okay, we're going to try to put them together as best as possible. All these kids know their ABCs and their letters. Okay, so we're going to put them all together so that we can hope that they're going to, learn. And I'm going to teach them how to decode and how to learn words and recognize words, and hope that they all can process it at the same speed, that they all can recall it at the same speed. And if I have to back up because one's not learning, and so you have to kind of go back to the starting point. If you're over here and you got to back up to go to the starting point because of a child, what about the other two kids? If you got 3 kids, what happens to them? They got to back up too? You see what I'm saying? So And that's not even touching on the IEP. That is not touching on the IEP. That is not touching on the fact that they all have different goals. So if your child has speech therapy or occupational therapy, and they're to work on different things within those sections, they say they have 3 goals each. All right. So you have Sarah who has 3 goals, Gabe who has 3 goals, and Margot who has 3 goals. I don't know how I come up with these names, and Margot who has 3 goals. That's 9 goals in a 30-minute period. So we're covering Gabe's and Sarah's and Margot's. Not one of them are getting a full 30 minutes on those 3 goals that each of them have, which is what the implementation of the IEP would be, right? Think about it. All right. Pushing for feeding. I mean, feeding with like a spoon or a fork. I would think the lunchroom would be the best place for that. That would be my thought process, because then they're in the appropriate place. But if they're not fed in the lunchroom, then, can you ask for, here, I'm going to show you. Can you ask for the grade of the benchmark assessment from your school? The grade? I wouldn't ask for the grade. I would ask for the whole kit and caboodle. Okay? So if you want to message me, Gina, of what benchmark they're taking, I'll explain to you every document that you can ask for that will show you where your child started when they first took that benchmark and then where they are now. So you can see if they truly made progress or not, versus the school just sending you that one report stop that says 100, 100, 100, 100, So all right. Don't forget to click the link so I can see you when you post. Hi, Erin. Hi, Kim. I was in speech when I was younger, and it was a group. Didn't even know. I mean, you have people here saying it doesn't work. The ones who are actually doing it, who are saying it doesn't work. Another thing you want to be mindful of is service minutes. All right, it's often ignored because sometimes it's not put into the IEP, and it has to be put into the IEP. Okay, one of my new products that are coming out in the next 2 weeks is on this exactly, which is minutes and how things need to be written in the IEP so that you know how many minutes your child is where they are. All right, how many ELA minutes are they getting? How many math minutes are they getting? How many minutes are they getting in maybe a more restrictive environment? Where are these minutes at? All right. Hi, Donna. How are you? Hi, Nan. Hi, Bill. All right. Any other questions? Hey, buddy. Any other questions? One of the things that you want to think about as well is really look at, that FERPA request. All right. And what you're asking for. That is going to be in my first letter. All right. In the membership. All right. So you will have a copy of that. That's going to be your golden ticket. so that you can get that information. And then once you have that and your assessments, you're golden. Then you will be able to really see, what it is and where your child is. And then, like a hawk, watch what they're doing and the progress that they're making or not making. All right? Because you cannot even guess if they're making progress or if they're not. You got to know. Okay? All right. So I will be on here later tomorrow. More than likely tomorrow morning or around lunchtime. And we're going to talk about another topic that I think will be very enlightening to you in regards to some issues that are going on right now that are very prevalent. And I think you will need to hear that. Another thing that you need to look out for is if you have IEPs coming up, because lots of IEPs happen in the spring, is do not allow them to say, oh, we only offer 5 weeks of ESY at 2 hours, 3 hours per day, 4 days a week. That's it. That's what we offer. That's what we're doing. It needs to be set up on an individual basis, specific to your child. If that means 1 time a week for an hour, that's what they need. If it means 5 times a week for 5 hours, then that's what they need. All right, we'll talk more about that soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday afternoon. Bye-bye.